Welcome to this training course, which brought to you by CA Management Services. We're going to go through and show you different features of Triumph. Something you will notice down the bottom is there's a table of contents. The course is anywhere between 1 and 2 hours long if you go through the whole course, but if you actually look at the table of contents, we've broken it into distinct sections, which allows you to go in and pick a section and just do a section and then come back to it later. Also means that if you have got staff who need to learn particular functions, you can grab them to just go through that particular section. As you are going through though, we do try and cover off on a few exercises and things like that, but it is designed that you can pick and choose the areas that you want to come in and use. Hopefully you enjoy the course. Look forward to getting some feedback. Thank you. The objective of this training course is just to allow you to go through and learn some of the features and to practice some of the skills that you'll get by using Triumph Accounting. When you're going through, you'll see we covered different parts of the modules, and there are sections in there where we will actually give you exercises. So it is good if you open up the demonstration company and go through and try some of the exercises while you're doing it. Good luck. Hopefully you'll enjoy the course. In this slide here, I'm not going to actually read you the slide, and it's standard through the course. You'll get different slides coming up. I'm not going to actually talk to you about every one of them. It's really aimed for you to stop and have a read, have a think about what it means, and then you'll basically be able to click on to the next place where you'll be listening to a video. Thank you.
So we're going to have a look at the inventory system setup. There's quite a few options in the inventory system setup, and we just work our way through each one, discussing them. The first option is you can choose to whether you want to cost things by average cost, last cost, or standard. The system by default tracks all three, and you can change on the fly. The only thing it won't do is if you do change on the fly, it won't adjust your general ledger. You'd have to do that manually yourself. When you're doing data entry, you can actually choose to say your data entry is using your stock code, your alternate code, or your supplier code, or you can actually change this on the fly by using the right mouse click or Alt Q, and it will let you change the code. You can do the same thing as in your data entry. You can sell it by your stock code or your alternate code, and Alt Q will have the same effect. Setting prices up for selling. When you're actually setting up your default margins in your stock groups, you can actually set them up as being margins or markup, depending on how the business works. When we're setting up price lists and you're doing special price updates, do we want them to be rounded? Yes, all rounded or inclusive of tax, so you can actually set them up to round them. How do you do rounding? Up, down, nearest 5 cents. So I'll just go with that one. Do I want to be able to have stock line imports on my transactions, like debtors orders, transactions or sales orders, and in my stock takes? Yes, I can set that up to allow me to do imports. Reorder levels, quite common concept is when you are running a min-max and you set up your min-max levels, is it the fact that you say, I get to a certain minimum and I want to reorder a certain quantity, or I want to reorder a certain up to a certain maximum? So you can actually decide which way you go there. Catalogues, talked about this in the catalogue area, but just saying, if you are setting up new items for catalogues, do you want a warning before, after, or just create with no warning? When you're setting up your costings for a catalogue item, how do you want these to be set up to flow through? The system will keep track of the month end you're at. It'll also track what they call transaction history, so how long do you want to keep transactions in your file. There's also sales history. Quite common that there's actually a file that Triumph keeps behind the scenes that tracks the sales history of every type of transaction, so all the bill of materials ins, outs, all the sales ins and outs. There is no real reporting on it, but it is there for use with crystal reporting should you want to actually analyse information and analyse your sales movements, and you can know how long, up to 99 months. Do you want to keep barcodes? Yes, no. You can actually put extra barcodes in there. When you're doing a stock take, do you want to default items that are not counted? So as a process, when you're actually checking things for lay-bys, do you want to actually include lay-bys in your stock take? So if you are running point of sale, have you taken the lay-bys out and put them separately, and it just necessarily count them as part of the stock, or the system will just assume that they've been counted as being available. If you've got no stock available, do you want it to actually automatically send a request through to purchasing? So as you're doing a sales order entry or any sale, do you want to request that stock to be sent to purchasing? Warranty sales, this is quite a powerful tool. Is if you are making a sale to a customer under warranty, it's quite common the reason you're selling it to them is that you're having to replace it, and therefore you're selling it at a zero value. If you don't want those zero value sales to affect your sales statistics, you can actually set it up that it will take it out and not update sales statistics, but will take it out and put it into a separate sales account as well. So you can see how much warranty costs are costing you. How many price lists do you want to have? You can have up to 6 different price lists, and it's optional how many you want to have, but 6 is the maximum. when you're buying items in and you receipt them in, do you want the selling price to adjust based on the margins you previously had? And it can have it to be set up to automatically change, or do you want to have it so it defaults and just defaults what price it is, and then you can decide to change it if you like. Talking your price list, what do you want to name your price list, so you can actually set up your price list and name them whatever you like. And if they are in different currencies, you can set them in their different currencies. We continue across looking at this. Is a price list inclusive or exclusive of tax? Do you want your prices based on your stock margins to change automatically? So if you have set them to adjust, how do you want just this price list to adjust, or all prices? When you're bringing in catalogue items, how do you mark up that each different price list or sell price is created? And setting up discounts in groups, you can name these as well. We continue on, we can get default document numbers for different transactions, so requisitions, transfers, production. When we're setting up stock items, we can set default non-stock items, so we say by each, the dozen, what's our default lead time, default stock groups, default manufacturer, and default GL posting table. Setting up your supplier prices, you can give these names as well, and you can set up your standard pricing. So quite commonly you can set up your nominated buy price to come on purchase orders, to come through as the last buy price, or one of your nominated price lists. And special processing, we talked about this in the special processing setup. That will do us for purchase for the when you first start to set up a debtors module, the first thing you always need to do is go to System Maintenance, System Setup, Debtor Control Maintenance. The key to this is you'll see by all the little options here, there are various options you can turn on and off, and we'll just go through each one individually so you can have an idea of what it's about. First one we've got is settlement discounts. What this does is allow you to offer settlement discounts to customers or not to customers. Retentions, more used in your building type industries, but do you actually hold, does your customers hold retentions on your account? Yes or no, what's very good, and we will have a special section on this in the course, but it just allows you to record how much has been held on a retention and will be paid to you later. Do you want a parent, children, or a corporate account situation? Next thing, sales groups. Turning this on and off, and you'll see this turns off the sales group 1 or 2. What's also available in here, we can then change this name to other types of things, so we can, instead of having sales rep, we could just have sales person, something of that nature, giving you the options to change that around. I'll just put it back to rep. Do we want to have invoice costs for non-stock based items? Something to note, whenever you click on one of these, there's a little note down the bottom in Triumph for all things, giving you a little base of what's happening. And I'll highlight this when I'm taking you through how to do an invoice. Do we want sales alerts on an account? So if we're getting notes on a debtor's account, do we want to have those notes alerting people as they're doing transactions? Do we wish to have batch invoices turned on so we can actually process the invoice without updating the general ledger? Delivery addresses, does the account have multiple delivery addresses? If it does have multiple delivery addresses, when we're processing an invoice, do we want to select the default first address to come up? When we're actually, if we're running a balance forward account, do we want this to automatically apply credit things at the end of the month? So just streamlining some of the data processing. Multiple control accounts. Most people only run one trade debtors account, but you can actually turn that on. That way you can have multiple control accounts. It also means that you can have debtors set up to go to different general ledger posting tables by default, which overrides what's on the debtors account, or sorry, on the inventory account. Applying future transactions, with Triumph being a date-based system, you can process into any future date, backwards and forwards, but if you want to lock it down so people don't do things like that, you can unapply that. I would normally advise that we always have it on, so it's date-based. Descriptions we've talked about. Statements is an ability to have multiple types of statement. The key difference is we run through them. First one at the bottom is balance forward, always gives you a balance forward transaction and lists any new invoices. A debit credit transaction gives you a debit column and a credit column. An outstanding one only lists what's outstanding on the account, while a normal will list any invoices that were paid during the month and how they were paid. Each different customer tends to have their own choice, so normally you can print them out and show it to them. And if you're doing a parent-children transaction, you can combine all this parent-children transaction into one statement. Initially, when you set up a module, you'll normally want to nominate the end of month that you're working on. So we've got audit trails by month, and then you can nominate how much history. So you can have up to 99 months of history months on a debtors module. Finance charges, the ability, if you turn this on, that you can set up and have minimum charge, interest charges for outstanding accounts. I won't go through that in detail, but it is available. Document numbering under invoices, credit notes, receipts, journals. You can set up to have numbering with your own prefix number. So we can have an INV or IN, two-digit number and its own number, which then increments. You've also got the ability to set up entry defaults on a debtor's master code. So this just means that when you're setting up new debtors, it will come up with predefined account information so that you're not having to re-enter it in. Word of warning, if you find that you've got a debtors account, most of the time people may set this up for either being the boss's account or leave it blank, which forces people to put in the correct entry. We have entries like credit limits, what price list, the normal price list they use, and how do they normally deal with transaction entry of the discount. Do they normally do it by dollar transaction or percentage thing? Both of these are overridable, but it just sets the default for when processing. I think that will actually leave us finishing this section. We'll move on from there. So in setting up creditors initially, we do need to go to system maintenance, system setup, and under creditor control. There are numerous options you can set in here. If we just work our way through each one. Settlement discount, this gives the ability, and you'll see down here, Triumph gives little prompts. So if your customers are offering, or your suppliers are offering you settlement discounts and you wish to take them up so that when you're doing automatic pay runs that you're getting the best advantage of what they're offering you, you can take that up and record them. If you don't wish to have that, you can turn it off. Retentions, does your business run with retentions, yes or no? You can turn it off if you wish to. Do you have parent branches? And you can turn those on and off. Do you deal with withholding tax because you haven't got an ABN on the supplier's invoice? If you want to actually match up your what this immediately matches up any withholding tax against the invoice you've done the withholding for. If you want to group people into different things, and this is where we can see a group name for purchasing officer. Multiple control accounts, which we talked about having that set up in the maintenance. Applying future transactions, pretty much always turned on at this stage, but what it allows you to do is, if you want to do automatic payment runs or transactions into the future past your month end, you do need to have this on so you can actually marry up a payment against and allocate it to an invoice. Do you allow duplicate invoices? So you can actually allow duplicate invoices to credit, and a warning will display if an existing one happens, or we can say I won't allow that, and every invoice has to have a unique number. Do you want an alert? So if you're putting in notes on a supplier, do you want to have an alert pop up as you're doing a transaction that something's got to be followed through? I've talked about that. When's the month end that relates to this account? how much history do you want to keep on transactions, and you can keep up to 99 months worth of history. Do you want to keep transactions in remittance, on the remittance? So this is just a printing function. Do you actually want automatic payments turned on? To most people, it's set by default, so it will happen. You can set up automatic journal numbers, payment numbers, EFT numbers, and for when you're setting up creditors to begin with, you can default their groupings, their agings, their terms, if they've got a purchasing officer, open item, and whether you can take $1 or a percentage discount. So to experiment with that, it's worth turning off some of these functions and just seeing which menu options do and don't change. Something to note is when doing creditor control, there are some other areas that you should look at for when you're doing creditors. Under general ledger control, maintenance, it's necessary to actually set up your control codes in here to say where's your normal creditor control account, settlement, discount, retention, withholding tax are going to go to in your general ledger. And it's worth also being conscious that under tax control, you need to set up to have your GST account in place. So just giving a couple of things that are worth looking at there. So we've sort of been looking at setting up jobs and firing on jobs, but by just start looking at some of the setup options of the job costing, so you can see some of the power of things. So when we're in here, we start to get components of things we can set up. I'm just going to go through a few of these and we'll sort of skip back and forth. So the first one is under jobs. So I've been talking about job costing, but I may want to actually change this and call it boat costing and call it section. So I've changed that and I hit save there. We now have a boat costing module, and look at my maintenance. I have default sections, and if I go into job maintenance, we now have a boat number and sections, and there's all our different things. So I can do, but very quickly by doing a little change like that, it can make the job costing far more appropriate to the user. They can feel like it's actually working for them, not against them. Go back into here again, and you'll see that my boat costing control, I can put that back to job again. Just the standard cell. So the default is job and cost center, but you can do the same with your groups, areas, departments. If we have a look at a couple of others, I can turn off group numbers, so same as what I'm doing within debtors. If I don't want to have those in there, I can turn those off. I can turn off department settings. I can turn off labour activities. I can turn off parent-children. I can turn off income and advance, which we talked about. If I just save that for a moment, and we now have a look at a job. I go to maintenance, and none of those sections are here to maintain anymore. And if I go into the job, the setting up of the job is simplified because you don't have that information in there. And you're not having those groupings, etc. I'm going to turn them back on. So get those back on. Oh, we'll actually talk about labour. Let's just talk about that for a minute. So we only have an employee. There's no labour activity. So it's basically broken it down so that the person's timesheets are very simple. And you have no parent-children on the job as well. Requisition for BOM numbers I'll talk about at a later stage. Allow sales accruals we'll talk about at a later stage. Income and advance we'll have a major discussion on that. We've done the things you can do. periods, and you can nominate up to 99 months of history. I won't talk about the work in progress as yet, but you can turn that on and off. Budgets, we talked briefly about that a while ago, so this is where you can turn on budget, and you can either budget it by period or not, so I'll turn that off. You have an ability also to have warnings, so should you exceed your budget, do you want it to give you a warning based on you exceeding your numbers, exceeding your actual amount or your charge amount, or giving you no warnings? You can set up your default next job number, timesheet number, overhead number, administrative adjustment number. Entry options, we've talked about it things. So when you're actually doing timesheets, we'll talk a bit more about putting time in. You can do it either by units or time in minutes. The more data entry ones. You have an ability to store or recall timesheets. When we're doing timesheets, we'll talk about those, but it lets you actually have timesheets either update automatically or be posted as batches. Entry default, so when you are setting up a job, what are the standard defaults that you want? So all of the sections and cost centers and default postings can be set up, and you can also set up your standard charge matrix. So what is your normal accepted margin? And save that and just go back and talk to that. I'll turn the budgets on there and go back into a job. So now if I have a look at mine, oh, I've turned budgets off completely. I thought I didn't mean to do that. Oh. Maybe I haven't. Let's go and have a look at that. Alright. Something to keep that on my toes. I'll turn that back on for a second. Obviously something in the demo is causing me a bit of trouble, because what I was trying to do is to set up my jobs with budgets again. Because normally you can actually then set up budgets and you only get to have one budget figure in there. You might revisit that as we go through the training a bit further. Okay. I think that's something back here covering, yes, so all the rest of the things in that cost configuration area we'll cover as we do them. The one you will notice up the top here before we go is you can actually turn off cost centers completely. I tend to very rarely turn them off because it's easier to leave it turned on and have at least one cost center on a job. And because most people start off saying they don't need to break it down, but they seem to quickly change their mind. It's just easier to have it on to begin with. Alright.
So you set up your purchase order, and first thing you need to do is go to System Maintenance, System Setup, Extra Setup Options, and go to Purchase Order and Control. A few criteria to think about here, the questions to actually think of. When you're actually doing your deliveries and invoicing, do you want the system to default the quantities? So this means if you've ordered 10, it'll automatically come up on the delivery and the invoice with 10. Yes, it's a yes or no question. I normally leave it as yes. Your next question is, don't allow the quantity delivered to exceed what's been ordered. Optional question is, if there's more quantity being delivered than ordered, do you want to allow that? And you can set that either way you like. Do you want to make sure it matches the invoice to the purchase order? So it just forces you to actually check things. So what we then do is we're checking the only posting invoice on the delivery information. So we're actually saying don't let the invoice go more than what's been delivered. Do we want to check that don't allow the invoice quantity to exceed what's been ordered? don't allow invoice amount to exceed ordered amount. So you can actually put different criteria of warnings and stopping people doing things, and it just depends on how far you want to lock the system down. Do you want the system to be given an automatic delivery docket number, or do you force people to data entry that in themselves? So just making it very much a warning. Do you want staff to know that there's certain goods on back order when they receive things? So from the shipping, as the people receive things in, they're then told that goods are available on back order, so they should then go and find out who they're for. Do you want to force people to fill in back bin locations so they can store where it is, and that will then update your inventory information with what your new bin location is? And do you wish to keep the markup between actual and charge amount when the cost changes on job lines? So we've got margins set up in jobs. Do you want to, if the costs go up, do you want those markups to be kept the same even though the costs have changed? So just a few options that are worth turning on and off and testing and trialing a few things as you do some transactions. And then you've got the ability to say how long do you keep old purchase orders for. A couple of the key questions is the GL interface is, if you want to keep committed liability information, you tend to turn committed liability. I tend to turn, if I'm using job costing, I will tend to turn it on always because I want to see the committed liability on a job. If I'm not running job costing, I tend to turn it off. The good thing is, if we did have committed costing turned on, and we then go to our general ledger control and our control account maintenance, the system expects us to fill in under purchase ordering our default committed liability and committed expense. If we set those as being the same account, it will turn committed liability on to reflect reporting information in the job costing, but won't actually create any general ledger journals, which is normally the way I set it. But if you do want to have a committed liability in the general ledgers, you can do that. You'll also see in here that there's a requirement to set up your accrued liability account. The other thing that happens if you turn this on as well is under your tax control maintenance, you need to set up your purchases accrual for your GST, because as you create accruals, the entry needs to reflect the total liability, which is the amount that you owe creditors, or less what you're going to claim back for GST purposes. So we go back into our purchase control, and that's really driven by committed costing and then turning on your accrual costings. You can set up your document numbering to say what comes through, and then we can start to do requisitions, and I'll come back to the requisitions when we talk purchase requisitions and our functions of what we can do. So that's setting up purchase control, purchase order settings. So in the previous sessions we've really gone through the simple process of doing the quote, taking it to an order, producing that into a confirmation, picking slip confirmation, delivering it and invoicing it. The challenge is in lots of organisations that processes don't work that way, and you need to be able to vary the processes. So to be able to do that, let's go into system maintenance, system setup, under extra setup options, and have a look at some of the options that are available in sales order entry control. The first few things that we can look at is skipping stock description. So really from a data entry point of view, do you want to skip over the description because the description is going to always be the same? One of the common ones that I would normally suggest that you always turn on is to show reference. If I save that one and we'll come out of there now and just show you what that means. Yes. What this means is, as I'm putting in sales order entry, the system will always give me the next order number. What's interesting is, if you've got 10 order entry clerks taking order numbers, they will all be given 01009 as the next order number, because the way Triumph works with its invoicing, you're only given your final number when you hit the save button. So in the process of picking up a person's order, putting it through and doing the line, so just a nice simple order, and hit OK. As I hit OK on this, you'll now be allocated the next transaction reference number. So if you had multiple people, you'd actually give the final number. And I'll come back over that order now. Let's just go back to our system setup again. Alright, next one down is manual order range. What this is actually saying is, as we do our selections to do orders, so I'm going to turn a couple of things on here as we go. So I'm going to turn on sales order exists, and I'm going to turn off picking slips, and I'm going to turn off deliveries, just so you can see numerous things happen at once. So I'll just save that record so it changes the screens for us, and I'll explain each of the changes. We'll just go back into debtors, sales order entry, transaction entry. The first thing you'll see here is, because I turned off picking slips, confirmations and deliveries, we don't have those processes anymore. So if I go into here under my create processes, you'll see as well, because I put on the manual order, it always leaves this as blank. So if I actually hit apply selections, I get nothing. Design of this is that we have had customers where it's set up like this, go in and go yep, and then hit add all, and suddenly get everything invoiced when they weren't ready to be invoiced. So it's a bit of a security blanket. For most people, the filters and the add controls it, so I tend to leave it off at the moment, but if someone is making blunders, it's good control to put in. The other flag that I turned on was a function that if I put in an order number with the same date and put the customer in, you'll find that it'll actually bring up the same customer order number found and modify on this date. Concept being, for a lot of organisations where clients order many times during the day and they will repeatedly bring up, instead of raising multiple invoices for the day, they want to be able to go back into the same order, or someone's given an order, they want to edit that order, you want to be able to bring up that same order and modify the one that's there. So I can immediately go back to the last order that they were working on, change that, and that means they'll only get one adjusted order per day or one invoice per day. Let's go back into sales order, and I'll just talk about a few of those other things. So you'll see here that's normally I'd turn that off, and I'm going to turn that one off as well. When putting in quantities, and maybe if I'll minimise that and I'll bring up an order so you can see what I'm talking about. Is when I put an order in, the system will immediately put it into reserve. What this is driven by, we've got around so we can look at it, is for accountable items, don't skip the quantities. Do we want to skip the quantities, which means it will just immediately deal with them. So the first one is it'll always take me to each different column, which is how much ordered, how much reserved, how much on back order. Skip the quantities, we'll just put it straight to ordered. Skip and reset order quantity. If we don't have sufficient stock, it will reduce the ordered quantity down to what we've got available. Skip and set all reserved. We'll skip these, but always put everything to reserve. It ignores how much stock we've got available. It assumes that we can always deliver them. And the last one is it skips and always puts it on back order. So it always, in this case, assumes we don't have enough and we want to back order it and get it in. Each different type of organisation has different things. The common ones we see is the all reserve means that people are doing this because they don't trust the stock system, they want to pick everything. The back ordered one is more where people want to take the order in and then they want to look at it and decide how much they can order in, or they're doing always doing a back-to-back ordering scenario. If I keep going, so we can also then do other things in here. We can set up things to sometimes auto print. So you may have noticed previously when we were doing orders, it always comes up and asks the question about going to picking slips as we do an order. This is driven by this, that we can set the stages up to happen. So if I leave that as it is and I went through, it'll actually ask me the next stage automatically when I save a purchase order or save a sales order. We can handle how to do back orders, either setting back orders, and this is if we don't have sufficient stock, and you'll see this when we do purchase requisitions, but if we are going on to back order, the system will allow us to allocate against existing purchase orders coming in, and we can do this either manually, we can either default it or automate. I'll leave it on manual. A couple of other little things here is how long do we hold our quotes for? We set them for 30 days before they expire. What's the normal delivery time we have on an order, and how many months of history do we want to hold on a sales order entry so we can look back. If I then turn picking slips on, we can print picking slips without confirming, or we can confirm them. Let's have a look at what that looks like now with our settings. So coming over here and so we'll close that, which will then reset the modules. So you'll see what it actually does is reset the menu structures. So in this case, I've set up my business flows and I just want to do picking slips and confirm quantities. Or I could have just had it say it did picking slips. One of the other things it does, if I save an order here and don't print the destination, the automatic next stage is to print picking slips, so it'll ask me to do that for you. Coming back in the setups again, we can turn on delivery dockets if we want to print delivery dockets. Do we want to have dollars printed on our documents? Do we always select the first delivery address? Is the customer allowed to have part deliveries? And that will then set up in the actual customer's account with a question for them. We'll show you that. If we go and say we want to have order invoices, do we want to have the delivery addresses on there? Do we want to sort it by bin location as the default? Do we want to allow part invoices? Do we want to allow edit invoices? When we do have back orders, do we always print them or just print them on the first invoice? I would normally always leave it always. When we're setting this up, we can then set up our things, our order numbers, our quote numbers. You'll see here it also allows us to set up internet quotes. So if you're using the e-commerce module, what's the quote number, and you can have a basket number for your internet. And we can also set up default entries for charge lines of freight, etc. And do we want default manifests coming through. So as you can see there, by playing with the order entry, you can define the different structures of how you pick and pack. And I will have another session which talks about a couple of other options there.
So you're wanting to actually change your point of sale and adjust some of your settings and configurations. So to do this, we need to go to System Maintenance, System Setup, and there's a point of sale control maintenance. We just come in here and have a look at a few of the things that come through. First one is we've got PLU items. That's turned on at the moment. If I minimize there and go into point of sale, what you'll actually see is PLU items is this whole section down the bottom here. I'll close out of there, turn that off. And we go back into point of sale again. I can turn that whole section off so you don't actually have the touch screen type stuff there. Just handy for some people who don't have a lot of that type of environment. We'll come back out of the point of sale, go back into the system maintenance, and we'll just talk through some of these other options, turning that back on. So do we want to be able to enter non-stock costs into a transaction? So as you're doing a sale, and if you're putting in a non-stock item that you're selling, a non-stock item is something you don't normally carry in stock, do you want your staff to be able to cost it? Most people do. Do you share EFTPOS readers? Triumph has a couple of options with this. First one is you can have an integrated EFTPOS, and in that case an EFTPOS machine has to be linked up individually to each different workstation. In a lot of environments, people will actually have the one EFTPOS machine shared amongst 3 or 4 tills, and in that case you then flag it as being linked up, and this means that when you do your cash reconciliation reports for each different till, they'll then combine into one grand total to make reconciling back to your bank's statement a little far easier. We have an option here to print accounts out to docket printers. So when we're actually printing out account sales, we have an option to say, do we want it to print as a slip printer, or do we want a full size A4 slip or A size 4 invoice? You can do it in here, or you have got an option under systems, forms, setup. We come into point of sale setup in here. You'll see all the different types of transactions coming through. And if we're doing these type of transactions, I can come in here and say, I want it in a docket format, or I want it in an A4 format. So up at the top here, if you look at this, that's the normal thing. If I change that, it'll now change to being the A4 format. Same situation in all my transactions. So you can choose the different types of transactions and how you want to print them. While we are in here, you also have an ability to set all the forms up to be either going out straight to printer, straight to email, or you can have them going to multiple places if that suited you. So back into point of sale maintenance. When we're doing a transaction, do we want to default the cash amount? If you've got for a lot of people who have cash amounts, that means they're taking cash all the time as their preferred option, so we turn that on as the preferred option. A lot of people nowadays take their money via EFTPOS, so they turn it off. Do we require a password? This actually tends to tie in with this forcing an operator. So if you want to actually do a transaction and always force the operator to log in to say who their ID is, we can have it so that it logs on the first time of the day, or every sale they have to log in with their code. And at an extra level of security, we could require them to put their password in each time. For a lot of people, they tend to actually be happy enough putting the ID in but not having the password. Confirm clear is there is a clear button on the transaction. Do you want people to actually have to confirm they've done that so that they can't just hit it by accident? Automatic commit is on getting full payment of the transaction. Do you want it to actually assume the transaction is going to complete? So just taking away an extra keystroke. We can lock down the grid, and the grid is just preventing changes of people changing the look and feel of some of the search screens. When we're actually coming through, there are some profile information that pops up at the end of a sale. So you may want to know someone's postcode, email, you may want to know their male, female. This is all for marketing information. Do you want to warn if you've got negative stock? A lot of situations is point of sales, if the person's got it in their hand, you just want to sell it. You don't want to be warned that it's gone negative because it means your system is wrong, but sometimes it's useful. Do you recalculate a sale on putting in a debtors code? If you are running debtors, a lot of people will have special prices arranged for their debtors, and they do want to therefore have it so that as soon as they put their debtors code in, the whole system will recalculate, and this then goes back through and checks that there's any special prices that are available for that person and gives them those prices, rounding to the nearest 5 cents up or down, so just for cash purposes. how do you actually break down in your time? So we saw in one of the early reports we can break down and know what times things are being sold. Do you want it every 15 minutes, every half hour, every hour? What's the normal cash sale price that people will be paying? So as they're coming through, they're a cash sale person, what's their normal price? If they're a debtor, it would go to whatever set up on the debtor's account. Part of the tax laws, you are required to capture people's name and address if it's over $1,000. For some people, they actually want to force their staff to capture that information for people that are lower than that. So it's just a useful feature for getting information on clients. The security issue about Tilrex, do we want to let people have a look at things for the one day? They're not allowed to look back at all. When you're actually looking at transactions, and if I just go back into point of sale again, so I just pick a transaction, put it through. You'll see over here it has the Endeavour to rule pad. What this is asking is, do we want to have the name of the product there, the alternate code, or the product code? Talked about the ID. When we're actually going to a blank transaction, so if I just come back to the point of sale again, if I have the situation that I leave this blank, I can have it so it automatically goes, so it lets me put in the code, or it can automatically go to this search screen to help me find things. Or if I leave it blank, I can then come down onto a description code and put in my own description or whatever I want to put. So it just gives me a few options on how to process things. At the end of a sale, what do we want to see? Do we want to actually see the summary of the transaction? So if I just finish that transaction, do I want to see this summary information here pop up on the page, just so I can see what's balance owing? How long do I keep transactions for? So most people, we tend to keep them for something like 36 months, but everyone can choose, and that means when it's deleting, it'll actually delete any history from that point. We have a couple of types of ordering. We have a cafe restaurant type ordering or a stock back order. We begin with the first one being the cafe restaurant. Fairly simple situation that someone comes into your cafe and you want them to be able to sit at their table, and you know that table 13's ordered a certain amount of things, and you can then process that through and edit and take a deposit if necessary, or just process different orders so that then when they come up they can pay it. Or for other people, they want to deal with stock back orders, so the client could come in and give them an order for stock, and we require the customer to give us at their order number. What do we want to come up for the date? Do we want to have the delivery date of when goods are going to go out, and if so, what's the default time? Or we can have an expiry date for when this back order is going to expire. A couple of different options there. If we go into the defaults, this is just trying to speed up the processing. What is this type of transaction or default payment method? Normally nowadays it's EFTPOS. And what is the default EFTPOS card that you would use if you were going to pull up and use an EFTPOS card? When you come in, where do you always want to go as you exit a PLU, to a new line or stay on the same one? So if I just look in here, so what that means is if I go to my sales line, as I do a transaction, did I want it to go back to a blank one, or did I want it to actually come back to where I was? Most people want to go to a new next one because it's on to the next transaction. Coming in with a customer, do I start on their code or name? Same thing here. If I'm putting it to a customer, do I want to start on their debtor code or go straight to the name? I can search from either one, and it will give me the same searches, but it just takes me to a quicker place to search or start from. What's the panel I want to start on? So we've talked about having multiple panels, so you can actually choose the panel that brings up onto screen. Most people have one panel, but we do find that in some business units they'll have different places and different states wanting to have different panels. What's the PLU button that you want to have popping up? So you may be in the butchers, so you want to get the butcher panel up to start with. Starting in which panel again, which sales line I want to be on a sales line to start with. I can have different colors, default salespeople, default operators. And I also have an ability to have what we call an embedded barcode. What this is actually about is, for many grocers or type places, that butcher will actually have their own weighing scales machine. When they do that, they will actually put on the PLU item and the price all into a barcode. So you can actually set it up so that when you're scanning that barcode at the front counter, it will automatically recognize that it is that type of barcode, and this is where it's going to find the stock code, and this is where it's going to find the price to process it through. All right, that gives us the setup. One thing else we should be looking at when we are talking setups is under system maintenance, under utilities, under the workstation maintenance. There's also an area in here for every PC where we flag point of sale information, where we want to actually say, is this a point of sale machine? If we're sharing an FPOS machine, what FPOS machine are we sharing with, so that they know how to link them? Or if we're integrating with FPOS, it'll actually come in and fill in that information. If I'm using a poll display, linking it up with OPOS, what's the name of it? Same for linking up with a cash drawer. And do I want to pop things for checks, vouchers, FPOS, credit cards? For this actual PC, what's the main panel I want to do? What's the starting panel? What's the PLU I want? Do I want my on-screen keyboard to kick up? And if so, for what type of entries? You tend to have this more when you're running an iPad. If we're then coming in further, we can actually then have the user that comes up that is the valid user every time I log on to this machine. And if I'm linking to a scales, what is that scales? And when I'm doing remote terminals, it just, is it a remote device being a tablet? Just limits some of the transactional information going up and down the line. So one other thing to just conscious in there is when you are setting up this, there is actually a document that's available on the Triumph website about setting up printers and how to set up OPOS devices. That would be a useful document to have as a supervisor, to know how to set up and link those things together. I think that gives us enough of the setup. So just for the setup of the point of sale and linking it up to the general ledger, there's a lot of extra accounts that you do need to just consider. So if I just go into system maintenance, system setup, general ledger control maintenance, and general. So in here we have our normal control accounts. So accounts that are important for point of sale, and just make sure you've got your bank account and your default receipting account. If we then come through, and you'll see there's a particular tab here for point of sale. So point of sale, we need to make sure we have our POS cash account. So the POS cash account is designed so that as we're doing a transaction, it will record all of the money taken over the till that's gone in temporarily into the till. So at any point in time, you can look up that account and know how much money should be in all the tills across all of the stores. Same thing with the POS FPOS. It will keep tabs of how much FPOS you've taken for the day. Then when you're doing your end of day processing, it will actually take this money out of the POS cash account and move it up to the default receipting account, or the POS FPOS, it will take that out of the till and put it straight into the bank, because you actually get your settlement of your POS machine every night. Some of the other accounts coming through is the POS unders and overs. So as you're counting your cash, if your cash doesn't balance up to what you put through the till, you can actually record your unders and overs, and it'll actually give you a total of that. No charge is dealing with situations where you're actually giving away goods for nothing and you want to be able to charge it and you know how much you've given away. Gift vouchers issued is if you issue a gift voucher, there is a liability for that gift voucher because someone's going to come and use it, so it'll record the total of that for you, and that'll then tie up to what's in your held report. Order deposits and lay-by deposits, similar accounts in the fact that if you raise an order and someone gives you a deposit, you've got to record what you've received from them. Same thing with a lay-by, if someone's giving you money against a lay-by. And then you've got other income, and the other income is designed for where you've received things, or if someone hasn't come and collected their lay-by or their order after the nominated time, you can then write off those deposits back into other income. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the key accounts for point of sale. You still need to make sure you then have set up all your inventory accounts so that you know where your inventory is going and it's all coming through the correct areas and all your purchasing for your other modules. But I'm not going to cover the rest of that in detail. I'll just leave you to deal with that in an individual area.
So when you're setting up the general ledger, one of the key components you need to spend time on is doing a chart of account type. But after the chart of account is configured, you'll need to then go to the general ledger control, and in the general ledger control account maintenance, there's a whole range of accounts to be set up. What comes up in here will depend on what options you've set up when you're actually doing the system setup for different modules. But we'll just work through for the moment, talk about each account and what needs to go into it. So the first one is the suspense account. Normally I'd set up something like 4 nines or 3 nines in the suspense account. The suspense account will collect any information where something has a one-sided entry, or if there's not an account set up correctly, it will always post to this account. So normally in a situation where you accidentally set something up wrong and left it blank, it will flow through to here and you'll see the errors at that stage. The next one down is your bank account. Normally you set up with one bank account. You'll see I've done this in multi-division, because in multi-division you can actually set the bank account to be the bank account of a different division. So it will do a 4-sided journal between the divisions. The default receiving account, this is normally set up as your receipts received but not banked yet, or unbanked deposits. If you don't put in a separate default receiving account, it won't actually work where you can do your bank deposits. So normally I just set that up in the current assets. The cash rounding account is defined for rounding of invoices both in and out and through point of sale. A couple of key ones to think about here is balance brought forward and carried forward. The concept of the brought forward account is always a posting account and lets you bring last year's balance forward. The carry forward is a different account to any other posting account. It is actually the only one that is an add to, because when it actually does so, it needs to add through the profit and loss and the balance brought forward, and then that figure is then at the end of the year picked up and carried back into the brought forward account. So these two are very closely related. You just need to be aware of that relationship. Foreign currency gain and loss only comes on if you've got turned on gain and loss accounts, and it is where all the losses and gains are reflected when they crystallise. Same situation with interdivision transfers. This only comes up when you're running a multi-division system and you set the system to allow you to do balanced ledgers. It'll also mean that you'll notice here it's got a 0.01. In this case, is that you can set up the system to go to different account ledgers, so that each different division's loan accounts will go to their own loan accounts. And that's a setting in the initial setup of the division area. Debtors, fairly simple one being trade debtors. Something to bear in mind that you can override that control account by flagging in the debtors control that you want to have set control account, so that way you can then nominate a control account on each individual debtors account. Settlement discounts,
only comes up if you turn on settlement discounts within debtors, and will therefore reflect where your settlement discounts want to go as an expense. Same thing with debtors retentions, being a liability, or sorry, an asset account. It only comes up if you turn on that you want to have retentions in debtors. Damaged goods. This is used when you're receiving goods in on a credit note and you've nominated the goods are damaged. So it will actually, instead of putting the goods back into the stock system as an asset, we'll write those assets off or those inventory items off to the damaged goods account so you can track how much has been written off. Creditors, trade creditors, exactly the opposite of the creditors, but in the same situation there, you can set up multiple control accounts in each individual creditor. Settlement discounts will only come up if you turn that on in the control area, and same with creditors retention. We'll turn that on if you turn that on in the creditors control. Withholding tax is only used if you haven't got an ABN number or you've nominated that you're going to withdraw a certain amount of withholding tax at an invoice stage. Purchase order, you'll see you've got committed liabilities here and a default committed expense. Most times when I'm setting up accounts, I normally have these nominated being to the same account. You only need to really have committed liability and committed expense accounts set up as being different if someone wants to nominate an expense account at the time they raise a purchase order. One of the other ones that does come through here is the accrued liability, which is reflecting any goods that have been received on a purchase order, but the invoice yet hasn't been received. Inventory, setting up your opening stock and closing stock. Something to bear in mind is if you set up your posting table with an opening stock and a closing stock as being the same account, the system will actually ignore them. And if I just skip back on the purchase order, same thing here, if you set your committed liability and your default committed expense as the same account, it won't actually create any journal entry that just defaults them as being the same thing. Purchase accruals is the default account when using inventory by itself. If you're bringing in a goods receipt straight into the system, it's the account that's going to put the credit entry through to. It doesn't actually affect anything with purchase accruals or anything in the creditors. Common occasion you do this is when you're producing your own goods in a company and you want to bring new stock in and you need to have a credit account which is really going to reflect as a sale in another division, so that division can sell it into your stock system. Stock on hand, simple and self-explanatory. Sales, discounts, normal purchases account that go with it. Last one here is warranty. This only comes if you turn on the warranty flag in the inventory control, and what it's designed for is when you're doing a sale to a customer, you can flag that sale as being a warranty sale, and instead of going through the sale, it will show as a warranty expense. It means that the system can cope with where the costs are going. Before we get off the inventory, you'll notice when you actually look at posting tables, this is really just used as a default area, and you set up your GL postings to the appropriate areas that you need to go for each stock item. Point of sale. First one we've got here is the POS cash account. POS cash is setting up and tracking how much cash is received in all of your tills for the day. And you've got POS, FPOS, same thing, how much FPOS have you received for the day. Then when you do a till roll, a cash draw write-off or an end of day write-off front, it allows you to get the detail of how much cash is received, how much profit, and it'll journal out of that account into the unreceived funds up the top here, being the default receiving account. So fundamentally the process is how much has it got in the tills now, and once it's been taken out of the tills, it goes how much is meant to be banked. POS unders and overs, really dealing with the situation. If you're doing your POS banking for the day and you've had some unders and overs, what's the expense going to go? If you sell things through POS as a no charge, you're giving them away. You need to reflect where that expense is going to go. Gift vouchers is a liability for any gift vouchers you sold. Order deposits is any liability for any deposits you've received that haven't yet sold. Same thing with a lay-by deposit. And then the other income is any default sales that you make which are coming through as a sundry income. Costings now lets us set up a default labour recovery, so that when you're setting up a staff member, the normal recovery account they'll go to. The next one down is the overhead recovery, doing the same thing, setting it up to your defaults. And then if you turned on income in advance, it'll actually allow you to set up income in advance area. Hopefully that gives you a quick summary of what those accounts are, and the key thing to remember is a lot of these will only get turned on when you turn them on. Something just to bear in mind while we are just talking postings is tax control. In here you also have a few accounts that you need to set, and you normally also then need to be wary to set up your tax codes in here to make sure these are set for each different tax code. And finally, if you go to the general ledger, you need to ensure you do get all your posting tables set up. This is all the information that's flowing through as a defaulting.
System maintenance, system setup and general ledger control. So this is where we need to just go in if we're setting up general ledger to actually control everything. So we'll just go in and have a look at some of the functions and options of what we've got here. So we can come in and we can decide whether we want to reflect budgets in the system, whether we want to have in our P&L balance sheet to compare this year's numbers against last year to date or just last year total balance. Instead of using the posting period control under special processing, we can actually come in here and manually set where our periods are posting up to, and we can come in and give it the next journal number. Nice easy sort of setup of the control. We have the general ledger control maintenance, and you'll find if you go through there is actually a specific video that covers this, but this is actually setting up all the different control accounts needed to post between all the different sub-modules and the general ledger modules, etc. So this is sort of summarising where things will go to. We then have our financial period maintenance. So in here we can actually set up the dates for each period. You'll see in this example that we've set up and we're using the end of month dates, but there's no reason for me not to. I can change a date and have any end of period date that I like. What is handy is that you can come back in here after you've been running the system and change a financial period. What will happen, the system will go back and readjust every transaction in the period, looking at the transaction date and moving it to the new period that you've nominated. You'll nominate, you've got 18 periods open, but you can nominate when the period changes. So you might have a 13 period year or a 14 period year if you wanted to. Defaulting is your monthly, you can do 4 weekly, or you can do another period setting. And because you can actually do things and change periods, we've had many occasions where people have started off with one set of reporting periods and then they've had a takeover or something, and they've had to then change their reporting from monthly to 4 weekly or 4/4/5s, and having different period end dates. So nice and easy to change that, and the fact that it flows through and it picks up all the historical transactions and puts them in the new periods makes things very easy to manage. And then we've got our bank rec control. So bank rec just sort of flows through from this, and it's how do we want to report things and how many history periods do we want to have. So just before we get off, there's something that's normally set up as part of doing general ledger. You also need to just make sure you look at your tax control, because tax control does all of your BAS settings and your ABNs and your default settings for BAS and history transactions, and where are the accounts going.
Okay, we're now going to have a look at importing in creditors. So, same sort of situation as when you're doing the debtors. The first thing you need to do is just make sure that you've set up things like your tax code. You don't need to worry about on hold. Aging periods you need to actually make sure they're correct. You need to set up your credit terms. You need to make sure you've set up a purchasing. I've set up one here already called Peter Holland, which is going to be my default. I can set up my groups. I've set up one already for all creditors. So the key thing here is you need to go into your creditors and just make sure that we actually have got the end of period and things like that set correct, and your period, and you can set up your default as we've set up in this case. Record that. Then if we open up our creditors file, and if I just go to the very top of this, there's a standard MYOB file, and as we did with the debtors file, we need to actually create a debtors code and create our own code. And this is the same thing that we showed you in the debtors one. You need to take the figures off it and actually create a unique code. So something that was a bit different when I pre-created this one is I come down to Telstra. You'll see I have lots and lots of Telstras, and I've just gone with Telstra 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rather than using the alphanumeric just to make it easy. But then what we need to do is then go through and match up your, I'm just going in to get this information. If I pull up my header for this, which is my creditor file, I need to just go through and marry up that my header file ties up. And same as even when we're doing the debtors, you'll see that MYOB actually always has its five different name addresses. We really only import the first two in from a point of view of Triumph, and then we can delete the fields out. So I've in this case I've pre-done this field and I've married up things going through. Something just to be wary of when you are doing this, if you do get a situation that you've got BSB numbers that don't exist, or when in the BSBs, you need to make sure as you open the file, I are set up as text files. If you bring in those numbers and resave them, you'll leave some leading zero, which can be a complete pain and makes it very difficult to do this. So it is imperative to get those as a text field. Then you can then go through and you can check all the fields marry up. It's all very simple. And as we've done in previous things, you just do your SUII and import it. Only things that may be interesting there is, if you do get errors, I'm going to give you a line number that you can go and have a look at and see what happened. So that is a fairly simple process because you've done already with the debtors. It's really running the same thing, and I just go import. I've said debtor before, I'm now going to do creditor. I'm going to spell it correctly, and it will read through everything, import them, validate them, and bring it all in. That's all very simple, and we'll see then we've got our creditors in the system. Okay, that will do me for that. So we're now about to do the inventory import. So same as we've done with all our other modules, we need to go into inventory and make sure we've got maintenance sync set up. So if we start here with tax code, yes, we know the tax codes are set up. Without, in Data Included, it wasn't as important with a posting table set up, so you can't set up a stock item without a posting table. So I do need to go and actually do some of my setup that I've skipped previously. So I'm going to go and do my GL control codes and set this in place. So I do need to actually set all this information. So I'm going to set suspense to suspense. We need to now find our default bank account. And our undeposited fund or receiving account, rounding account. I'll put that office expenses for the moment. Brought forward. And there's just a matter of going through and presetting all of the control accounts to the appropriate areas that you want them to go to. So the discussion on these will be held more in the general ledger setups, etc. But I'm just setting these best I can at the moment where I want them to go. So some of them like the discount, I know I'm not using discounts, so I'm just putting them to the purchases accounts, etc. This thing, by setting these up, this sets up my default processing areas. So, opening stock, closing stock. Purchase accruals is really if we're just using inventory in its own standalone area. So. Either can go to a sundry creditors account or I'll go to purchases, but I'll just put it to sundry creditors for the moment. Because the purchase accruals, it only used when you're doing good receipts of your own things, and depending on how you set that up, sometimes we'll go to a good receipt, sometimes we'll go to a sales account internal for internal sales. And actually, I have got this module, but I'm not actually using it, so I'm just going to put it all through to the same. job costing, but I wanted to get that set up so we could progress on. So now I can go back to the inventory and set up a posting table. So I need to set up a posting table, and if I look at my chart so I can actually get some logic to it. Now actually we have admin and the area 01, so I'll just set area 10. So I'll set up my posting table as area 10. And just take the defaults and I've now set in place. Manufacture. So who's manufactured these items? If we'll have a look at our spreadsheet of what information we've got on this. There's very little information about what's come through. The challenging bit of data coming out of MyOb is it's for inventory, it's not quite as detailed as you get into other modules. It's really only giving us some very basic information. So at this stage I'm just going to go with NA4, not applicable, just for the time being, because that way we'll have something to default for all of my maintenance areas. No special pricing. Stock groups. Well, what was interesting there, we do actually have information on the stock groups here. So we're going to need to actually do some work on this spreadsheet to actually get them into codes, but we're also going to have to do some manual import into Triumph to actually set up each of these individual groups with their codes. But I will do that offline before I do the import. Oops, enable that, but we will need to actually start getting these codes into its own column. So yes, that will be needed. We'll need to set up categories within groups as well, so we've actually got some in there already which we've preset, but we're going to need to get our groups in. In this case the client data is all coming into locations, so we've just got one location in Tom Price, but we'll need to look at what other locations are in there, and then things will be ready to go, and I can then start to set up my system maintenance inventory and set up my periods, and I'll take 48 periods for history for the moment. And I need to start setting up my defaults, which haven't been set up yet, but we'll need to go and do those and bring them in. What I'll do is I'll save that and I'll start a new session after I finish preparing the file a bit more and getting those catalogues and groups in. So I've actually been in now and created all the stock groups, which is quite tedious to get all this set up, but one of those sort of things necessary when you're doing it, talking to clients, to get the codes and working out what's there and getting them linked up to your categories. So what I need to now do is in our Excel is clean this up so that we can actually use it. So I'm just going to go insert here and I understand what's happening there. That's just making that. I think what I'm going to do is go equals left the left 4 characters of that. But once I've got that, I've now got a so if I go copy and I paste that back as a special value, then I've got values in there, and then I can just get rid of this column because I don't need it, and I don't need that column, any of these columns here, because they're just excess the moment. So I can clean this up to be, that's my stock group, that's my stock code, my description, each dozen, etc. And so now I need to actually create an import file to match that up. So I would normally go in here and open up system maintenance, utilities, import, layouts, and inventory stock master. And this gives me the details here of what I need. And I need to set up one that looks something like this. So let's come into here, and I need to create a new text document. Change the text document, sometimes it will call it a text document rather than a header, so I'm going to call this stock.header, and change the extension. Well, I won't give it that one, I'll give it a different name because I've already got one there. Name that, let's go inventory dot header. So that's now put it in there. Sometimes you do find that you have to actually play in the system to actually get it to go with the proper header file, because it will save it as a text file and it won't read that. So if I now open it up, I've actually got a blank record. So as per my help file a minute ago, I now need to start putting in things. So I need to put inventory accounts. So just cheating, I'm looking right alongside it. I want to go inventory. I can shortcut this so I don't have to write the whole thing. Comment eliminated, both, and I can put in inventory import. I can leave a blank line. I always have to leave a blank line, and then I can start to nominate the fields that I want. So let's pull up that spreadsheet and this over the top. And so the first column is going to be my group. What's the group called? So back into here and running down this list to find the INL group hash. So if I copy that and put that in there as my group, and back to my spreadsheet. So the next one is a dummy field because I don't want that. The next field is my stock code field, so back into here again, get the stock code field, which is INM stock hash. Paste that one in. What's the next field is the description. So it's easy, description. The next field is there we have sales unit, sell price and cost price. So I need to find what they're called. So sales unit, great. Sell price. Alright, so we have, you'll see here we have 6 different prices. So I'll put in as my price 1. And it's the next tax price, so I'd better just check in here for a minute. That it was not, I need to make all the next tax prices. Assuming we've got text, I'll assume text tax prices at this stage, and I'll just set that in place. in price 1, so we've got that, and now I want to put in the cost price. So the cost price is my system maintenance utilities, import for inventory, and the cost price is called what? Average cost. But same thing now, I'm even just double checking my system setup that it is actually average cost that we're running. So it is running average cost. So if it wasn't average cost, we would be running it as a and I better, while I'm in here, start setting up some of these things. So I want to go to group 10, etc. So I can just save that settings. I now have those matched up, so I'll just double check that the match up works. So column A, dummy is B, C is the stock code, D is the description, E is the sales unit price and cost price. Something just to be conscious of when you are importing, if you actually got your prices set up with commas in them or dollars and cents, they'll get ignored, so you do need to make sure you format them as numbers, and in this case it is, so I'm now going to just save that as a CSV, call it inventory, and we want to put it into that folder that we're working on, so it's gone into there. And we want to make this one here same as well, and it's going as an inventory. It's going as inventory.header into the DAT4, so great, I'm happy with that. So let's just see if that imports, and before I import I better make sure I do a transfer out again, because this could go horribly wrong. Made that copy, now let's do the import. Something wrong with my header, isn't there? Giving me error messages. So I need to have a look at my header and see what I've done. Ah, I see what I've done. I put a full stop rather than a comma. Let's save that again and come back in again and have another crack. That's better. So it's now giving me the information, and I can read the data, 624 records. So let's have a quick look at that and see if it seems about right. Yes, 624 is the right number. Yep, that's A624. Excellent. So I know that's right. And next, I can validate it. It says it's going to accept it. Something just to bear in mind before we do proceed is I am in a multi-location system, and normally when you're bringing into multi-location you want to say what location it's going into, but it'll default, if not it'll default into the location I'm working at. So we'll have a look and see whether that actually worked. And lo and behold, that looks like it worked. So we've got things in there, we've got locations and some prices. I haven't got any supplier information, etc., but we've basically got some stock in there now. So after you've done all that, then it's really a matter of now starting to clean things up and setting up any other modules. But I'll say.
So here's a list of all of the different types of transactions that you can actually do. You'll see we've done videos for each different one. When you're going through, by all means, I would suggest that you stop at the end of each video and actually go onto your Triumph Play system and try and do a few of the transactions yourself, because at the end of all of the videos we're going to give you some exercises to test you out. And what we've seen running it in practice is most people would have liked to have had a bit more time to play with it before they do their exercises. So the good thing is with this training video, you can just stop, go and have a play in the real system, come back to it, have another go from there. Hopefully you enjoy it.
Just realised I need to actually do an update from my Triumph. So what I was going to do is just take you through doing an update. So the first thing we need to do an update is go to the internet, and I'm just going to go to the Triumph website. Triumph.com.au, run that, and hopefully this will bring me up their website. So when I bring up the website to actually do the update, I can go to support, update, and click on that, and it'll actually bring through. And depending on where you are, in this case I'm doing a Triumph 5.1 update, and I can then just click on the download. So what you will notice as well is actually a changes document. So if you want to look at what changes there are, if I just click on there and have a look at that to start with, and just open this up, and we'll just bring that in to have a look at it for a minute. You can see here, we'll make that a little bit larger. You can see that for each build date that they bring through, they have a little update of all the changes. So these are all the small changes of what have happened. So you can scan through and see any changes. I'm not going to read them. I'm just going to hit the download button now and save that to my hard disk. So I don't have to wait for it. I've actually already downloaded it. So what I normally do is when I download this, I normally save it into the Triumph Workstation folder. So that way in my Workstation folder you'll see I've got a Triumph 5.1 update which has just been downloaded, and if I then click on that to run it, you may need to run this as an administrator, but most times you don't. It'll run pre-installed everything. It greeted with license terms. Next, make sure that you're getting the right folder, and then run the install. What this does is then upload any programs or changes that Triumph have done in the interim and any other report changes, and then you can run an update. You'll come through and you'll see here it tells you what release you are, what your folders are, and the date. So normally you can just either select an individual company or all companies. So I'll just select all companies here, and it's going to run through and confirm this procedure. If you're at all concerned, you can back up the system before you do it. I know I'm happy with this, so it's now running through each of those individual companies and doing the necessary changes that have come through in this update. Once that's finished, I can view the log, and if I just view the log so we can see it, we'll make that a little bit smaller so we can fit it on the screen properly, so you can then see what's happened, and it will actually run through and give you a list of everything that's changed as it went through. That's it for being able to do a simple little update, just so you know how to do it.
So what we've included here is a couple of links to different websites where you can actually get a whole heap of useful documents that may or may not relate to the training course you've just been doing, but we've gradually been accumulating different notes and shortcuts that can come in handy. So feel free to go and have a look. Hopefully at this stage you're sick of listening to my voice, which is good, but you've also learnt some of these skills along the way. And this is the last slide, so well done, congratulations, you've now completed the course.